Hey Ninja Warriors, welcome to Warrior Wednesday. If you're wondering why I'm streaming from my Facebook fan page versus my personal page, it's because on my personal page, for some reason, there was not an option for me to do a Facebook Live, which I thought is so strange and bizarre because I always do my Facebook Lives on my personal page versus my fan page. So it is what it is. I'm just going with the flow, going with it, running with it. And so there we are on my fan page. So if you're tuning in here live, welcome, welcome, welcome. Comment and say that you're here so I can acknowledge you. And if you're catching the replay, comment with hashtag replay so I can acknowledge you and say, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. And if you're here, it means that you're driven, ambitious, and committed, and you're also up to big things in life. And so that's why you're here, because you're up to big things. And so welcome. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Zena Solomon, and I'm here to inspire you and lead you in creating the life that you want, so creating a life by design versus a life by default, and also giving you the opportunity to give birth to your dreams, so that in the process you can be in alignment with your vision, values, passion, and purpose. So, with that said, today we're going to talk about rejection. And so, does rejection hold you back in life? And does rejection hold you back in business? And I have 4 simple ways for you to shift from that conversation so that you can be empowered and step away from rejection. So, for example, this is so perfect because on my personal page, Facebook page, I feel like now I got rejected from Facebook. You know what I mean? That could be my story, right? I was rejected by Facebook. You know what I mean? Like for posting on my personal page. Now I'm putting on my fan page. It is what it is, right? So everything is a conversation, everything is a story, and this is how you want to look at it, right? So I'm not taking it personal, obviously. I just think it's humorous. So my question for you is, what does rejection look like for you? What does it look like? What does it feel like when you're rejected? And what are you afraid of? Like what is your biggest fear in rejection? Like what are you most afraid of? And so, and if you're actually tuning in, I want you to comment. I invite you to comment because I want to hear from you and see what your thought process is. Okay, so rejection, first of all, is a form of judgment, and it's also very, very subjective because you can be in contact with a person. One person may not see what you're seeing; they might quote unquote reject you, and another person actually might see what you're talking about, and that would not be rejection. That would be, I guess, you can look at it as acceptance, right? And so, examples of feeling rejected can be something like you having a book, you want to publish a book, and then you going to a publisher and they reject you, right? Or if you're a guy, you might go out and ask a woman on a date and she rejects you. Or you might be a woman who goes out and asks a guy out on a date and he rejects you, right? It could be many different things. It could be you applying for a job and not getting the job. Again, feeling rejected. It could be you auditioning for a gig, whether it's a voiceover gig or an acting gig, and you're not getting it. Again, rejection, right? And so all of these are examples of rejection. And I want to say this before I move in. Rejection is actually a gift. And the reason I say it's a gift because it is a form of you taking a risk. And so when you want to step outside of your comfort zone, you are taking a risk. You're taking a leap of faith. You're going for it. So when you're taking that risk, there is going to be the possibility of that you putting yourself out there and possibly being rejected. And so it also supports you when you're in that space. It supports you in building the muscles of resilience and compassion. So resilience and compassion with yourself and also compassion with other people, and resilience, because the more you put yourself out there and the more you focus on making a difference and people for whatever reason don't get it or don't see it, then the more you actually step in and look at, well, okay, I'm building a stronger muscle here for myself, right? So Harvey Mackay has a beautiful quote, and I want to share this quote before I jump into the 4 ways for you to shift from rejection. And he says, most fears of rejection rest on the desire for approval from other people. Don't base your self-esteem on their opinions. And so I find that to be a very, very powerful quote because we want to be liked by other people. No one wants to be rejected. No one wants to feel like they don't fit in. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted. That's just part of being human. And if you base your self-esteem and your self-worth on what people think and say, well, you're limiting yourself, right? And so your self-worth is intact, and you are worthy and you're awesome the way you are, regardless of whether people see what you're seeing or not, okay? So the four ways for you to shift from rejection is, number one is you want to connect with your intention and your purpose. Like, what was the intention? What was the purpose of you actually going out doing what you're doing? Were you looking at creating a win-win? Where were you coming from? What was the point? So are you grounded in your point? Are you grounded in your intention? Are you grounded in your purpose? That's the first place to start, okay? Number two, you want to connect with what triggers you. So, for example, usually if you feel rejected, it means that you were triggered from something from the past. So look at a past event, connect with what that is, and see how is that related to what's going on right now. And my experience is that many people will take the past and put it in the present and think it's real, but it's not real. They're two separate situations. And so the opportunity for you is to get present to what triggered you and what's triggering you so that you can isolate whatever happened in the past and only focus on the whatever is occurring in the moment and the present and be in that present moment. And so you also want to ask yourself, well, what are you making it mean? And what happened? And how are you making that related to your self-worth? Like, you want to connect with all of that, right? So that's number two. Number three, you want to reframe. And reframe means shifting your energy and your perspective. I don't believe in rejection. Honestly, that's really where I come from. I never look at rejection as rejection. I look at it as selection. And so when you reframe and you shift the energy to selection, you were not selected for the job. You were not selected for the gig. You were not selected to be with this publishing company. You were not selected by that person. That person did not select your idea. So when you reframe the conversation to selection, it takes the negativity out and it focuses on that it was a selection. And it also, at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with you. It's never personal, by the way. So when someone doesn't see what you're seeing, it's never personal. And again, go back to why you're doing it. It's about making a difference. So when you're focusing on making a difference, and it's not about you, it's about making the difference. So then it is a selection process, or it is a selection. It's not rejection. Okay, so that's number three, reframe. And number four is you want to be in an ownership. You want to have an ownership mentality and an ownership mindset. And what I mean by that is, you're not a victim of what happened. Like, if someone didn't accept you or they rejected you, you're not a victim of that situation. And if you go into self-beat up and, and say, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Blah, 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 and go through into that conversation, then you're actually making it about you versus making it about what you were there to do. And you're being a victim about it. But when you're in ownership, you're going to ask yourself questions like, well, okay, the person didn't get what I was asking them to do or enrolling them to in what I'm offering. What could I have done differently? What could I have said differently that would have gotten a different result or yielded a different result? So being in ownership will give you the space to be empowered by what you're doing, and then it also gives you the energy of being like, okay, yeah, I could do this, versus like, oh my God, I was rejected. Okay, so these are four simple ways for you to shift, and you can implement them right here, right now. And I also want to say, when you focus on being your best, the feeling of quote unquote rejection wouldn't consume you because you're focusing on being your best. So you're going to put yourself out there. And I'm going to leave you with this powerful quote by Walt Disney. He says, first think, second believe, third dream, and finally dare. And dare is taking a risk and just going for it. So your mission for this week is you get to share how you conquer rejection and how you go about in creating a breakthrough for yourself, and what was the breakthrough for you that you got to create and manifest for yourself. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week, same time, same station, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, Warrior Wednesday. And hopefully next time we'll be on my personal page versus fan page. All right, guys. Sayonara.